from Huddersfield. Paula.
Good evening, both. I have worked since I was 15 years old, and at the moment I hold a full-time, stable job. My children have left home. In the last few years, I found it very difficult to make ends meet, and the money simply doesn't go far enough. All I do is work to live. My food bill is nearly doubled. I'm in arrears with my bills. I spend my weekends batch cooking so I don't have to turn on my oven in peak times. My savings are gone and I'm genuinely worried about my future. I don't think you actually understand how this is for people like me. So what can you do about that?
Thank you very much indeed, Paula, for your question. Rishi Sunak.
Well, Paula, I know how much of a strain the last few years have put on your family finances, the family finances of everyone in our country. And that's why my priority has always been to do what I can to support you. That started with bold action, like the furlough scheme during the pandemic, and more recently, my clear plan to bring inflation back to normal. And now, our economy is growing again, wages are rising, and crucially, we are able to now start cutting your taxes. But I know you're only just starting to see the benefits of that, as you described. So the choice at this election is with my clear plan and bold action to keep cutting your taxes, to give you financial security, or put all that progress at risk with higher taxes, £2,000 worth of higher taxes under the Labour Party.
Thank you, Rishi Sunak. Keir Starmer.
Paula, I'm really sorry to hear the position that you're in. It must be really, really difficult on a daily basis. And there'll be millions of people watching this who feel in a similar position to you, that the cost of living crisis is really bearing down on them with constant worry. I'm not going to pretend that Ukraine and COVID hasn't made things worse, but this government has lost control. Liz Truss crashed the economy. They made it worse here than in other countries, and it's people like you that are paying the price, because if a government loses control of the economy, as they have, it's working people that pay the price. And Liz Truss's advisers are in the House of Lords. She's going to be a candidate at the next election. Rishi Sunak is putting her forward. We've got to stop this chaos, got to stop the division, turn a page and start to rebuild under Labour.
Thank you for those opening statements, 45 seconds each. Just to turn to you first, Keir Starmer, the point that Rishi Sunak made is the economy is growing again. The plan is working, is his view.
Well, he says the plan is working. He says the plan is working. So the question for him is, why has he called the election now? Because if he thinks things are going to get better towards the second half of this year, why has he called it now? He's called it now because he knows, and I'll ask him this, he knows inflation is going to go back up. He knows energy prices are going to go back up in the autumn. That's what he's not telling you. So he says the plan is working, but I don't think he believes the plan is working, because if he thought the plan is working, he wouldn't have called this election right now.
Rishi Sunak.
I think it's slightly ironic, because from the moment I got this job, Keir Starmer was telling me, call an election, call an election. And now that we've called an election, he's saying, oh, no, don't have an election, because I don't want to tell you what I'm going to do. And this is the choice. This is the choice for everybody. The plan is working. Of course I know everyone is only just starting to feel the benefits of it, but inflation is back to normal, wages are growing, taxes are now being cut. Keir Starmer would put all that progress at risk. He would put up everyone's taxes by £2,000. £2,000 in higher taxes for every working family in our country after all the hard work and sacrifice we've been through. That's not the right course of action. I don't know why you want to put up people's taxes.
Keir Starmer.
Paula, I just don't know how you feel when you hear a Prime Minister say, having heard what you're going through, that the plan is working, it's all right. I meet so many people who are struggling with their bills, and the Prime Minister just keeps saying he lives in a different world, that
if people are struggling with their bills, why do you want to make it harder for them by saddling them with £2,000 worth of higher taxes? How is that going to make Paula or anyone's life easier?
Could you respond directly to Rishi Sunak?
This is the Prime Minister who's been part of a government that has put up tax 26 times. The last manifesto that they had in 2019 said we won't put up national insurance. This man then put up national insurance. He's the British expert on tax rises. They're at the highest level for 70 years. And he's got the gall to say other people are going to...
I know you're going to hear a lot about the past in this election, but
Well,
this election is about the future. This election is about the future, and I'm clear that I'm going to keep cutting people's taxes, as we now are. You want to put everyone's taxes up by £2,000, and this is really important. Independent Treasury officials have costed Labour's policies, and they amount to a £2,000 tax rise for every working family. No, this is important. Mark my words. Labour will raise your taxes. It's in their DNA. Your work, your car, your pension.
Thank you. OK,
you name it, Labour will tax it.
I'm just going to draw breath there a moment, please, gentlemen. We're going to be talking about tax again later on.
I just
want to bring this part of the debate back very firmly to Paula's question. She made it very clear how hard her life is at the moment. You did acknowledge it, both of you. She spends her weekends batch cooking so she doesn't have to turn her oven on during peak times. There is worry here, right before our eyes, that we're being echoed across the country. One of the key points that Paula says is I don't think you understand how hard it is for people like me. What are you going to do about it? How do you actually connect with Paula? Rishi Sunak.
Well, I'd ask everyone to judge me by my actions. You saw what I did during the pandemic. When disaster struck our country, I implemented the furlough scheme because I knew the impact, devastating impact it would have on people. And you know what? Every week, when I'm out and about, someone comes up to me and tells me how furlough saved their family, saved their home, because that's who I am. And I don't want to put that progress at risk. I want to keep delivering financial security by cutting people's taxes.
Thank you.
Whereas the Labour Party want to keep putting people's taxes up, and that's not going to help anyone overcome the challenges they're facing.
Paula wants to know what you're going to do about it.
I think what you put to the Prime Minister is, how does he connect? And Paula, what I would say is this. My dad worked in a factory. He was a toolmaker. My mum was a nurse. We didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, and we were in a position on occasion where we couldn't pay our bills. So I know how that feels. In our particular case, we had our phone cut off because we didn't have the money. So I do know the anguish of worrying when the postman comes with a bill. What is that bill going to be? Can I pay for it?
Are you saying
I don't think the Prime Minister quite understands the position that you and other people are in. I do want to, if I may, just answer that.
Please let Rishi Sunak respond to that, please.
Because this election is about the future and making people's lives better. Now, I've got a clear plan to ease those anxieties that Paula and everyone is facing, because things are tough. I want to make them easier by continuing to cut your taxes. The difference at this election is Keir Starmer is going to put your taxes up by £2,000.
Thank you.
So if people are worried about their electricity bill, their food bill...
OK, thank you very much. I am going to stop.
£2,000 worth of tax rises are not going to help with any of those things.
Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, I am going to draw a line under this part of the debate. We're going to be talking about tax again later on, and also to both of you we'll be talking about that. Paula, thank you very much indeed for your question. We're now going to go to the issue of health and social care, which, like some other issues that may come up in tonight's debate, is a devolved area. That means policies set directly in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and the UK government sets policy for England. So our next question is about the health service, and it's from Janet from Telford. Janet.
Thank you. I've interacted more with the NHS lately than the average person. I'm a cancer survivor. My son is a nurse. I recently lost a cousin who was waiting for surgery. No one is brave enough to tell us the truth. The NHS is broken. Be honest with us. How long will it take to fix it?
Thank you very much indeed. Janet. Keir Starmer.
Janet, I'm really sorry to hear about your own position and that of your relatives. My wife works in the NHS in one of the big London hospitals. My mum was a nurse, my sister was a nurse, so the DNA, it runs through my DNA. And you can imagine just how angry I am that it's been broken, and it has been broken exactly as you describe. It's unforgivable what's happened to the NHS, and to come into power for 14 years and leave the NHS in a worse state than when you found it is unforgivable in politics. And Rishi Sunak stood 18 months ago, Janet, and said that those waiting lists, which are now nearly 8 million. He said he'll get them down. He made a promise. He said he'd be held accountable. They were 7.2 million at the time. Now they're 7.5 million. So they've gone up, and that bears down on the NHS.
Rishi Sunak.
Well, Janet, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm glad that you've recovered. And I'm sorry for your loss as well. Now, my dad was a GP. My mum was a pharmacist. So I'm speaking as someone who was brought up in the NHS, surrounded by people who dedicated their lives to it. And the evenings in my house, growing up, my parents spoke about how they could provide more care for their patients, like you. And that's how I think about the NHS. And of course it's difficult, and you're right, and we have to be honest about the damage that COVID has done and the time it will take to recover from that. But we've put record funding in, we're training more doctors and nurses, we're doing more checks and scans, and what I want you to know is that the NHS is safe in my hands. I will always stand up for it to give you and everyone else the peace of mind that it will be there for you and your families when you need it.
Thank you very much. Janet put this question. Keir Starmer agreed with the part of that question, that the NHS is broken. Your response to that, Rishi Sunak?
Well, as Janet knows and everyone knows, the NHS is still recovering from COVID. We went through the best part of 2 years where the NHS couldn't conduct all the treatments it normally would, and it is going to take time to recover from that. But we are now making progress. The waiting lists are coming down. But what Keir Starmer didn't mention to you, which you did, Julie.
Waiting list 7.2 million, they're now 7.5 million. He says they're coming down, and this is the guy who says he's good at maths.
Yeah, they are now coming down. They are now coming down.
7.2 when you said you get them down. 7.2 million, they're now 7.5 million. I'd like you to explain how they're coming down.
Because they were coming down from where they were when they were higher.
7.2.
And they're now on their way down. They are down, right? Yes, because the NHS was impacted by industrial action. And if it wasn't for that, 500,000 appointments would have been saved.
So it's somebody else's fault.
No, but let me address the question, because, as you said, Julie, the NHS has devolved. So different parties are responsible for the NHS in different parts of the United Kingdom. Keir Starmer's party are responsible for it in Wales. Now, the NHS has been impacted by COVID everywhere. But things are difficult in England, I know that. But if you were in Wales, you would be waiting 40% longer for treatment. Ambulance and A&E times are the worst in Great Britain, and 1 in 4 people are on a waiting list. So, yes, the NHS has challenges, but it has challenges everywhere, regardless of the party that's in charge.
I'm looking at Janet's response, when all the Prime Minister can say to her is that what the position is in Wales. Janet, I don't know. You may not be interested in the position in Wales. You may be interested in the position that you're facing and want a Prime Minister who takes responsibility for what he is responsible for. But what you'll get with the Prime Minister is somebody who makes a promise saying, I will be held personally responsible for bringing those waiting lists down. Yeah. At the moment they don't come down, what does he do? He blames everybody else.
Keir Starmer...
What did personal responsibility actually mean?
Very clear.
Sorry, can I just intervene there and ask very specifically then, Keir Starmer, what would you do about the doctors' strikes that Rishi Sunak raised? Can you answer that very directly to Rishi Sunak?
We've got to resolve them, and for months and months and months, the Prime Minister hasn't resolved them. They've been arguing about who gets in the room. You've got to get in the room, you've got to resolve it, because the NHS needs to get back to work. But we've also got to bring down the waiting list. We've got a plan for 40,000 extra appointments each and every week. That's 2 million a year to bring those waiting lists down. They're at a record high. And under the last Labour government, the record was waiting lists right down, satisfaction in the NHS at a record high. That's completely been turned on its head.
OK, Rishi Sunak.
Well, I'm really grateful for everyone in the NHS for working so hard, and we have now settled pay rises with everyone in the NHS except for the junior doctors. And of course I want to do that, to make sure it's fair and affordable, though. But despite being offered the most generous pay settlement anywhere in the NHS, and indeed the public sector, the union are demanding a 35% pay rise, and I don't want to raise your taxes to pay for that, because I don't think it's right. But I will say this. So, when Keir Starmer says he'll resolve it, he hasn't explained to you how. But I will say this.
You can answer that, Keir Starmer.
Well, we wouldn't pay the 35%. We've already said that to the doctors. We can't afford it because the government's already broken the economy, and there are many things that now can't be afforded. So we're not going to pay that. But what you can't do is what the Prime Minister has done, which is to
say... Well, you just said you'd resolve it, so what would you do?
At the end of the day...
So you're not going to give them the 35% pay rise that they're asking for, so how would you resolve it?
Look,
just standing there and saying, I'll resolve it, isn't an answer. That's not a plan.
Prime Minister...
How would you resolve it?
Prime Minister, your record...
Well, no, how would you resolve it? You want to be Prime Minister, how would you resolve the strike?
I wish he had
how would you resolve them?
I wish he had as much to say when Liz Truss was crashing the economy.
Could you answer Rishi Sunak's point, please, Keir Starmer?
Well, I will when I can get a word in edgeways. His record is of saying, I'm not going to get in the room to negotiate. And what have we got?
No, we've been in the room to negotiate.
What have we got? Ongoing strikes.
Answer.
We have to end these strikes.
How?
The grown-up way to do that is to get in the room and to negotiate with the doctors and come to a settlement. There's only two ways forward. One is a continuing strike, which is what we've had for a very, very long time. We're now 4.5 weeks from election. He's going to kick it into the long grass.
Right.
Or you get grown up, you go in the room and you resolve this. That does not mean you agree with the 35%. We can't afford that.
Thank you.
But we have got to settle.
But on this point,
I'm going to pause
there.
I'm going to pause that there, please, because I want to return to another part of Janet's question that you did touch on, that she lost her cousin who was waiting for surgery. These waiting lists are a matter of life and death. A quick point of information to both of you. If you had loved ones on a long waiting list for surgery, would you, if you felt that that was the only way forward, use private healthcare? Rishi Sunak?
Yes.
Keir Starmer?
No.
Absolutely no if your loved one was on a waiting list for surgery?
No.
Thank you very much.
I don't use private health.
Okay.
I use the NHS. That's where my wife works, in one of the big hospitals. As I say, it runs through my DNA.
OK, thank you. We've had the answers to that very clearly. And I just want to pause there to move on to a different aspect of debate on the NHS. Everyone knows that fixing the NHS depends on fixing social care. 5 years ago, Boris Johnson was standing where you both are now. He told me there was a plan ready to go on this. We're still waiting. Will you both now commit to a fully funded solution in your manifesto this time round? Yes or no? Rishi Sunak.
Yes, well, we've already implemented charging reform. Pilots are in place to implement the reforms. They will be rolled out later this year, next year.
It'll be fully funded in your manifesto.
We've already given social care an extra $8 billion because the pressures are immediate.
Thank you.
And the pilot reforms are there for charging.
OK, we heard that answer. Yes or no?
We will have a plan for social care, and like everything else in our manifesto, it'll be fully costed and fully funded. It starts with the workforce because, as you know, one of the biggest problems in social care is that the workforce is fragmented, poor conditions, and many, many people.
Thank you.
Well, you talk about the workforce. If I could just pick up on this workforce question, because it is important, because there's no way to get Janet and everyone else the care they need without a workforce.
OK.
But the British Medical Association has warned that Keir Starmer's pension tax risks an exodus of doctors, because we're talking about doctors, from the NHS.
OK, we are going to... No, gentlemen, please.
It's all joined up. But it's all joined up. But this is an important point.
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to come on to tax very shortly. I am going to say, yes, tax will run through a lot of what we're discussing this evening. We will return very specifically to it. And I just want to stay on the issue of public services and take a quick fire on education. OK, we've had Harry, a message from Harry, who's a teacher just starting out, and Deborah, who has been a primary school head for 40 years. They've both been in touch with us to tell us effectively the same thing, that they cannot believe how bad things are in their sector. They want to know what you can do for them. Rishi Sunak.
Yes, well, I think education is the most powerful way that you can transform people's lives. That was something that my parents raised me with, and I'm grateful to all our teachers for what they're doing, which is why we're backing our schools with record investment at the moment, but also reforming how we teach our kids, which is why I'm proud that right now English school children are the best readers anywhere in the Western world, and that is testament to the hard work of teachers and the reforms of this Conservative government.
Well, there's a pattern here, isn't there? We've just been talking about the NHS, and Janet says it's broken. We've now gone to education, and the teachers say that's broken as well. And I know the Prime Minister has already said in the first however many minutes of the debate that he doesn't want to have anything to do with the last 14 years. I'm sorry, Prime Minister, you may want to just cast it off, but everybody else is living with it. When it comes to schools, we desperately need more teachers, because in secondary schools we do not have the teachers we need. So, for example, on key issues like maths, We have maths being taught, and parents watching this will know, by supply teachers, by PE teachers, but not maths teachers. So we would have in place, one of our first steps would be to recruit 6,500 teachers to fill those gaps, which will help the existing teachers who are struggling to cope with the mess that this government has left them in.
So tell Rishi Sunak why you're going to raise VAT on private schools to achieve the money that you say you will spend on those extra teachers. Why are you making that choice? Tell Rishi Sunak.
Because I believe every child should have the teachers they need in the core subjects like maths. And I think for a child in a state secondary school who doesn't have a core teacher in something like maths is going to live with that for the rest of their lives. It's not a one-year problem or a two-year problem. If they're in their GCSEs, it's for life. And therefore, we will have 6,500 recruits.
OK.
We will get rid of the tax break on private schools to pay for it. That's a tough choice. I do understand that. It's a tough choice.
Rishi Sunak.
But I want to make sure that children in our secondary schools get the chances that they need.
You've explained the policy. Thank you. Rishi Sunak, if you'd like to respond directly to Keir Starmer.
I don't agree with it, because I think people who work hard and aspire to provide that education for their kids should have that freedom. That's what my parents did, and I'll support it. But you heard it. Keir Starmer is going to raise taxes. But that's just the start, because there's a long list of other things that he needs to find the money for. So it's not just going to start and stop there. There are £2,000 worth of tax rises coming for every working family in this country. And as I said, he's saying to you he's going to raise taxes.
I do need to
that's not the start, and that's not the end.
I do need to answer that, because he put that figure out there. Well, what's happened here is, it's a classic, they put in pretend Labour policies to the Treasury, and then they get a false readout. So I'll just tell you, what they've put in for this analysis is a mental health policy that isn't the Labour Party's policy. He's put in one of his own policies. He's asked the civil service to cost it, and they've come up with this figure of £2,000. The
They are an independent civil service.
I think in terms...
Put it twice, I do need to deal with
it. Gentlemen, please, may I just say that people can have a lot of figures to get their heads around tonight. I'm not saying that people are more than capable of calculating that rapidly at home, but I do want to actually draw the focus then, given we're on this patch, very specifically onto the question of tax. I want to talk very specifically about tax before we finish this first half of our debate. Can we clarify the similarities in your positions? Please raise your hand if I am wrong. You, as Prime Minister, will not raise income tax. You will not raise national insurance in the next Parliament. And other than Labour on private schools, you will not raise VAT. Thank you for that instructive moment. We've had a lot of viewers getting in touch to ask, where is the money coming from to solve the huge challenges raised by Paula, Janet and many others? Are you two gentlemen being honest?
We will raise specific taxes, and we've been really clear what they are. We've already dealt with the tax break on private schools. We want to end the non-dom status completely. I think that the super-rich should be paying their tax. I want to get rid of the equity loopholes that are there, again, for the super-rich. And I think the oil and gas companies should be paying their fair share towards our energy. So we will raise those, but we won't raise the others.
Rishi Sunak.
Yes, well, we have already scrapped the non-dom regime, and we have a 75% windfall tax
you've left
on energy companies. But independent Treasury civil servants have costed Labour's policies, and it's £2,000. But you asked for specifics, really. So let's have a specific difference.
Please let Mr Sunak finish.
The triple lock plus, so that we raise the personal allowance for pensioners and ensure that the state pension is never subject to tax. That's what you'll get under a future Conservative government. Keir Starmer hasn't matched that pledge, which means for the first time in our country's history, if Labour are elected, pensioners will pay tax. I do not think that is right, and you should explain to everyone why you think pensioners will be paying a retirement tax under your government.
Briefly, please,
What the Prime Minister has done so far in the 2 weeks of this campaign is to make desperate gimmicks and put them on the table. He's told us he's going to get rid... It's their policy to get rid of national insurance altogether. That's £46 billion. He said it's their policy to get rid of inheritance tax. That's £10 billion. He says he's going to get rid of tax on pensioners.
You're just talking nonsense. But just answer the specific question. We have committed... I can tell you...
Thank you, not over each other. Thank you, not over each other.
No, but we've committed to the triple lock plus. Under us, the state pension will never pay tax. Under you, there's a retirement tax coming for British pensioners. I think think it's appalling, explain to people why do you think pensioners should pay tax on the state pension?
OK.
The big problem with Liz Truss is that she made unfunded tax cuts.
All right.
The Prime Minister is doing the same thing.
OK.
We're going to go round the circle again.
Everyone,
back to
because you asked,
square
Julie.
one.
OK.
You asked about it. It's very clear. Pensioners under Keir Starmer will pay tax on the state pension for the first time in our country's history.
All right, I'm going to just
It is a retirement tax, and Keir Starmer can talk about the past all he wants, but in the future, pensioners have got a tax rise coming under your government.
All right, gentlemen,
why
please.
Why do you want to do that to pensioners?
Gentlemen,
why do you want
please.
to put up their taxes?
We're just going to take a pause there. I just want to put this on the table. The Institute for Fiscal Studies independently has assessed that you are joining in a conspiracy of silence in not acknowledging the scale of the choices and trade-offs that will face us after the election. Unprotected budgets. That's budgets for areas outside of schools, the NHS and defence. They could face up to 4% of cuts a year. One word. Can you rule those cuts out? Are you being level with us? One word with us, yes or no?
We're going to continue investing record sums in public services.
I ask yes or no.
No, we're not going to go back to austerity. I ran a public service for 5 years, the Crown Prosecution Service. I know how hard it is.
Thank you very much
indeed. You don't have enough money. I believe in our public service.
Thank you, Keir Starmer. Thank you, Rishi Sunak. For the time being, we will take a breath. After the break, we'll be discussing immigration, climate, and we'll take a closer look at what sort of leader Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer would be. Don't go away.
Dynamic air suspension, all-wheel steering, configurable terrain response, effortless in the extreme.
Why do we have an MS Sleep Experts team? Because our expertly designed pillows and mattresses give you great sleep. Awaken your best at emma-sleep.co.uk.
Sunak's Expert Skin Health Body Wash with Moisture Lock technology deeply nourishes your skin for up to 12 hours, makes it feel instantly soft and hydrated. Sunak's Body Wash, certified by the British Skin Foundation. And after, feel confident for up to 48 hours with Sunak's Dermo Antiperspirants.
You might not think you're a litterer, but cigarette butts are rubbish. Bin your butts.
With so many holiday homes on Booking.com, there are so many Tina Feys I could be. So I hired body doubles.
Wild Tina at the holiday home!
Wild Tina at the apartment.
Oh, Tina.
Ooh. Booking.com, Booking.yeah.
Boots presents Take a Hike.
John from work said it's a lovely hike.
The family face a mountain.
Triathlon, John.
Mum nods.
Nice.
Right, Rosie, can I have the Boots bag?
She trots over with a Boots-branded bag.
No, I meant the hiking Boots bag.
Rosie blinks and stares.
Did we not bring it?
At a lake, Dad puts sun cream on Rosie. Selected stores, subject to availability.
Dad!
Such a shame.
Save summer with thousands of lower prices at Boots.
Got opinions? Great! We want to know what Scotland thinks. Join ScotPulse to complete short surveys, have your say, and win cash prizes.
Fed up with your glasses and contact lenses? Then what are you waiting for? Change your life with laser eye surgery. At Optical Express, laser eye surgery starts from only $5.95 per eye. Take the first step and book your free laser eye surgery consultation today. Call or go online. Optical Express.
Optical Express.
One moment you're queuing up for stamps, and the next...
You joking?
First class!
Seriously?
You're a millionaire! Lotto makes 2 millionaires a week on average. Will you be next?
Welcome back to Sunak versus Starmer, the ITV debate. The first half was dominated by the cost of living and public services. Just a little information for both of our candidates here. Please, an appeal from me not to speak over one another. We want to make sure that everybody can hear what you're saying. That was a gentle reminder. It may not be so gentle next time. We now turn to another important issue in this election, and that is immigration. And our next questioner is Stephen from Warrington. Stephen.
Thank you. Politicians have broken so many promises on immigration. Why should I trust either of you to do anything about such large numbers of people risking their lives to cross the Channel to gain access to the UK illegally?
Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. Rishi Sunak.
Stephen, immigration is too high, and we will need to take bold action to bring it down, whether that's legal migration, where we're going to introduce a new legal cap to guarantee that it will come down every year, or the boats, which you mentioned, where we got the numbers down last year by a third, and now we have a deterrent ready to go. Migrants have been detained, the flights will go in July, but only if I'm your Prime Minister. If Keir Starmer's elected, all those people will be released, the flights will be cancelled, and we will have no deterrent to stop the unfairness of people crossing in boats. So that's the choice for you at this election. Stick to our plan, and illegal migrants will be on those planes. With Labour, they will be out on our streets.
Thank you very much, Rishi Sunak. Keir Starmer.
Well, Stephen, the levels of migration are at record highs. 685,000. It's never been that high, save in the last year or two. The Prime Minister says it's too high. Well, who's in charge? Who's in charge? He's the most liberal Prime Minister we've ever had on immigration. We've never had numbers like this before. And he says that you can believe him on the boats. Nobody should be making that crossing across the Channel. 18 months ago, the Prime Minister made a promise. He said, just like the NHS promise, you're personally accountable for it, that he would stop the boats. This year alone, 10,000 people have crossed on boats. That's a record number. So, again, he's made a promise and he's completely failed to keep it.
Thank you. Rishi Sunak, respond directly to Keir Starmer.
Yeah. Over the last 12 months, the number of crossings have down a third because the plans we put in place are starting to make a difference. But the choice of this election is about the future. I believe you need to have a deterrent. The only way to stop this problem is to say to people who come here illegally, they cannot stay and they will be removed. If I'm your Prime Minister, the planes will go to Rwanda, we will have a deterrent. So the simple question for Keir Starmer is, what will you do with people who come here illegally? What will you do with them? Well, very simply, what will you do with them? That's what I'm going to do. We'll have a deterrent. What are you going to do?
We need to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, making a huge amount of money, putting some of the most vulnerable people in boats across the Channel. They're making a fortune. Before I was a politician, Stephen, I was the Director of Public Prosecutions, and I worked with the police and prosecutors in other countries to bring down terrorist gangs who are running across borders. I do not believe it's impossible to bring down these gangs. What I won't do is engage in an expensive gimmick, the Rwanda scheme. If he believed it was going to work, he wouldn't have called an election before it can be tested. He wouldn't have done it.
So, Keir Starmer said, smash the gangs. We put new laws in Parliament that have now led to almost 1,000 criminals and people smugglers being arrested, serving hundreds of years in jail. Because we do need to smash the gangs. Keir Starmer voted against those laws. So, as ever, you say one thing here, but your track record says something completely different, and you can't be trusted to tackle immigration.
Well, so why are the numbers this year 10,000 record numbers? Why is that?
Because this is a challenge. This is a growing challenge, but I've got a plan to deal with it because I'm going to put people on planes. What are you going to do with them? I can tell everyone what I'm going to do. You might not like it, but I've got a plan because we've got to have a deterrent. What are you going to do? Just tell everybody. What are you going to do with illegal migrants who arrive?
Please, can we please, gentlemen, we will lower our voices. Keir Starmer, please respond directly to Rishi Sunak.
There's a pattern of behaviour here. He said he would get waiting lists down. They've gone up. He said he would stop the boats. We've got record numbers coming. The promises he makes are not worth the paper they're written on. His plan is failing. We do have to deal with this problem, Stephen. We absolutely have to deal with it. We have to smash the gangs that are doing. I will never accept that the only criminal gangs that can't be taken down are these vile gangs. I've taken down terrorist gangs in my past. I've seen how it's done. I know it can be done. We'll have a border security command if I'm Prime Minister, and we will get that done and stop this vile trade and those boats coming over with very vulnerable people.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to call a pause there. Thank you very much. A very specific question to you, if I may, Rishi Sunak, and that is on the European Convention on Human Rights. If your Rwanda plan is blocked by the courts, and will this appear in your manifesto, that you would remove the UK from the European Convention on Human Rights? Is that part of your plan? Will that be in your manifesto?
I'm crystal clear. I believe all our plans are compliant with our international obligations, but if I am forced to choose between securing our borders and our country's security or a foreign court, I'm going to choose our country's security every single time.
So that's a yes. Excuse me, can I be clear? That is a yes.
I've been crystal clear. I will choose our country's security ahead of membership of a foreign court every single time.
Very, very clear answer. Keir Starmer, respond to that directly to Rishi Sunak, please.
No, if I'm Prime Minister, we will not pull out of international agreements and international law, which is respected the world over. Because I want the UK to be a respected player on the global stage, not a pariah who doesn't agree with international law. And those laws were put in place after the Second World War, after the horrors of the Second World War, when all governments, all countries came together and said, never again. And it was a Conservative government. Churchill's fingerprints are on this instrument. So important was it for the Conservative Party. This Conservative Party is a million miles away from the Conservative Party of old.
I have a direct question to put to you, Keir Starmer. You sound quite similar. Just to confirm for both of you, on the issue of safe routes. Are safe routes for people crossing the Channel not the answer? Keir Starmer.
Well, I don't think anybody should be crossing the Channel. In relation to some countries, I do agree with safe routes. So, for example, well, just give me an example, Afghanistan, where everybody will observe the terrible scenes when the Taliban took over, and people who'd risk their lives to interpret for our forces, etc. I thought they should be allowed to come here to safety, and I supported the safe routes for them to do so. There are circumstances where I do believe that's the right thing to do. Ukraine is another example.
Thank you. We just need to keep this brief. Yes or no to safe routes for those crossing the Channel?
Of course we should have safe routes, but when we've controlled our borders, we will be able to have a conversation about the right number to accept. We've been a very generous, compassionate country. But we talk about European conventions. 20 European countries almost now have agreed with my approach. Believe that you need to be able to return people to a safe country, otherwise you can't solve this problem. We still haven't heard from Keir Starmer, and this is meant to be a debate about the future. I will put people on planes to create that deterrent. Multiple other European countries agree with that. What will you do with illegal migrants who come here? What will you do with them?
Well, would you consider processing asylum claims in a third country, Keir Starmer?
Yes, if that was possible to do it in compliance with international law, of course. But just let me deal with this, because...
So you do now agree?
So you...
You've just changed your mind on this.
I thought we were not going to talk over each other.
So you do now agree with third country deals?
Thank you very much.
Could I just get a word in edgeways?
Mr Sunak. Mr Starmer.
At the moment, people arriving by small boats are not having their claims processed. By the end of the year, that means there'll be 100,000 people in hotels at taxpayers' expense who are not having their claims processed. That means one thing: they cannot be returned. And that's why returns have gone down by 40% on his watch. Now, he'll say again, well, don't look at the last 14 years. I know that was terrible. Don't look at that. I'm just looking forward. But I'm sorry, we're all living with the consequence of your awful decision.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for that. We are trying to get as many topics in. Thank you. No, thank you. I'm just going to draw a line under that. We are just trying to cover as much ground as possible. I'm sure you both understand that. Thank you. We're going to turn now to our fourth question from Omar from Manchester. Omar.
Thank you. I'm worried about the UK's lack of leadership on the world stage. I want our PM to be strong enough to take a stand even when it's hard. So what should happen next to stop these awful scenes we're seeing in Gaza?
Thank you very much indeed for that question, Omer. And that question there, it has a wide range to it, but very specifically, it is about the Hamas terrorist atrocities of October the 7th and then what unfolded after, the scenes of which we see on our television news every evening. So I'd like you both, please, to address that particular situation. A lot of people have been very uncomfortable with the stance that both of you have taken on this. How would you respond? First to Keir Starmer.
Well, Omar, the situation in Gaza is intolerable. It's catastrophic. Tens of thousands of people have been killed, a disproportionate number of women and children. So, Omar, what we need now is a ceasefire, a cessation of the hostilities straight away. And for these purposes, which is really important because it's a very grave situation, firstly, we have to get the hostages out. They've been held for a very, very long time, and I dread to think that the state they're in. Secondly, we desperately need humanitarian aid into Gaza, but desperately, it's catastrophic. Thirdly, and this is where the leadership piece comes in, we have to find a path to a lasting resolution. That has to be a two-state solution, and we need to show leadership on that. And I know that if we're elected into office, if we're humble enough to serve, that will be my solemn duty.
Rishi Sunak.
Yes, Omar, it's an awful situation, and I'm pleased, actually, that Keir Starmer supported, alongside me, Israel's right to defend itself in the face of the atrocious attack that they suffered. But right now, you're seeing that US have put a deal on the table, which we strongly support, together with our allies, to bring an immediate end to the hostilities, release hostages, get more aid in, and then build towards a lasting settlement with a two-state solution. We've led in providing more aid to Gaza, something I'm proud that we've done. Our troops have helped build the port that's being established. But more generally, the world is a more uncertain place. What Hamas is doing is indicative of the dangers we face, which is why I've made the bold decision also to lead, to increase investment in our country's defence, because I think that's necessary to keep you safe, everyone safe. It's something that the Labour Party have not matched.
Thank you very much indeed for those serious, considered responses to the first part of Omer's question. You raised a question there very specifically at the end of that statement, Rishi Sunak, raising the question about our security or otherwise under the potential leadership of Keir Starmer. Do you really think the man standing next to you is a threat to our national security?
No, I don't think the Labour Party can be trusted to keep this country as safe as the Conservatives. The world is a more dangerous and uncertain place than at any point since the end of the Cold War. I've made the decision to invest more in our defence, taking it up to 2.5% of GDP. Labour Party have not matched that. And worse than that, the person who would be Deputy Prime Minister under Keir Starmer does not believe in our nuclear deterrent, the ultimate guarantor of our security. So no, you can trust the Conservatives with our country's security, and my track record and our commitments prove that.
Keir Starmer.
This is shocking. Before I was a politician, I was the Director of Public Prosecutions. I was working on national security. I was dealing with terrorist plots. One of them that we prosecuted was to take down 7 aeroplanes as they were halfway across the Atlantic. They were going to be blown up. That is one of the cases that I prosecuted, knowing how important it is to keep everybody in this country safe and sound. Imagine what would have happened if those planes had gone down. For the Prime Minister, who was at the time making money, betting against the country during the financial crisis, that's what he was doing when I was acting on national security, to now say that somehow national security is safer in his hands is insulting and it's childish.
OK, thank you. A very brief response to that.
Well, I'd have rather had my job than work for extremists like Abu Qatada and Hizb ut-Tahrir.
The Crown Prosecution Service is an extremist organisation.
No, Abu Qatada and Hizb ut-Tahrir were who you work for as well, so people can Google that and have a look. But there's a clear choice.
Desperate.
I'm investing more in our country's defence, up to 2.5% of GDP.
OK.
You are not doing that.
OK.
So how can you tell people you will keep them safe when you're not willing to invest more in our country's security?
Thank you. We've explored both of those positions. I'm just going to draw a breath there. Just once again, we've got a quick-fire question for you from Stephen from West Sussex, who sent us a question and asked, just very quickly, a very brief answer from both of you. Would convicted criminal Donald Trump be someone you, as Prime Minister, would want a special relationship with? Keir Starmer.
If he's elected President of the US, then we will deal with him. It's up to the people in the US to decide who they want as their president. And the special
even if he's a criminal.
The special relationship transcends whoever fills the post of Prime Minister and President, because it's such an important, strong relationship.
Thank you. Rishi Sunak.
Yes, because having a strong relationship with our closest partner and ally in the United States is critical for keeping everyone in our country safe.
Thank you for those brief answers, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. We're going to go on to another question now, and this one is on the very pressing issue on climate change, and we're going to go to Claire from South London. Hi, Claire.
Thank you. The world is facing a climate catastrophe now. Both of you have broken promises on the environment. What are you doing to put climate at the very centre of your policies?
Thank you very much, Rishi Sunak.
Well, Claire, I have 2 young girls, and this is what they talk to me about more than anything else. And, of course, we're going to tackle climate change and get to net zero. This election is about how we do it. And I don't think that British people should solve a global problem all by themselves, which is why I'm also prioritising our country's energy security and your bills. We've heard a lot about the cost of living challenges today, so I have made some decisions, bold decisions, that will mean that we can save all of you thousands of pounds, still meet our targets, and we can ensure our country's energy security. The contrast is clear at this election, because Keir Starmer will reverse all of the changes I've made. That's going to cost everyone, and you, thousands of pounds, and make our country less energy secure by banning North Sea energy.
OK.
And that, I don't think, is a right course for our country.
Rishi Sunak, thank you. Keir Starmer.
This £2,000 he keeps saying it's going to cost is absolute garbage. We won't go into the details of it. But, Claire, let me address your point, because this is really important. A transition is coming that's very important when it comes, for example, to energy, a transition to renewables. I don't think we should just see that as a challenge. It's a huge opportunity, because if we go to renewable energy, that means cheaper bills. Renewables are cheaper, not just for the short term, but for the long term. It gives us energy security, so it means that Putin can't put his boot on our throat, and the result you've all been feeling for the last 2 years. But it also gives us the next generation of jobs. Other countries have realised renewables is the future. They're in the race. I want the UK to be in the race. I want us to win the race. When it comes to hydrogen, offshore wind, solar, nuclear, the question I ask is why not...
Thank you very much. That's 45 seconds, Keir Starmer. I'm going to try and stick to the rules if we can. There's a very specific point that Claire makes in her question. Both of you have broken your promises on the environment. Will you acknowledge that, right, Rishi Sunak?
No. We're going to stick to the targets we've put in place, but we're going to do it in a way that saves you all money. I'm not going to impose thousands of pounds of costs on you to arbitrarily rip out your boiler, change your car, convert your home. When we've been talking about the cost of living challenges earlier in this debate, I don't think adding thousands of pounds of cost to you is the right thing. Now, Keir Starmer is going to reverse those changes that I made.
OK,
so everyone is facing thousands of pounds of higher bills. That is the choice at this election.
Let Keir Starmer respond to that and address the issue of broken promises. Please respond directly to what...
It's hard to respond because he's making up as he goes along. But let me do the best that I can, because the promise I made was clean power by 2030. It's one of my 5 missions, Claire, one of the most important things that I want an incoming Labour government with a driving sense of purpose to achieve. Clean power by 2030. That's the promise I've made. That's the promise I'll keep. It'll be in our manifesto. It'll be fully costed and fully funded. But the Prime Minister is slowing down on the climate change. The problem with that is not only is that inconsistent with our obligations, it will cost more in the long run.
OK, let
so
Rishi
it's
Sunak
completely
respond to
head in the sand stuff.
Keir Starmer is going to reverse the changes I made. To install a heat pump now, if you don't need to, costs about £7,000 or £10,000. To convert your home, again, if you're in a terraced house in Darlington, £10,000. Changing your car sooner than America, Canada, Sweden, France, Germany, as he wants you to do. Thousands of pounds.
OK, let
There's
Keir
a simple
Starmer
choice
respond
at this election.
Thank you.
If you think Labour are going to win, start saving.
Let Keir Starmer respond to those specific points. Keir Starmer.
Well, the company that the Prime Minister's been using to try and trail out these figures has done some analysis, which is actually published today, Prime Minister. You obviously haven't seen it. What they say, this is the company he's relying on, is that will cost more, the 2030 plan, if you're with the Prime Minister than with a Labour government. And that's been published. I don't know whether you've been too busy or you perhaps haven't seen it, but the very company that he relies on to trot out these false figures is actually saying it's more expensive with the Conservatives than with Labour. Now, I would like him just to answer that.
Rishi Sunak,
anyone can go online when they get home. Go and see how much it will cost to convert your home. Go and see how much it will cost to install the heat pump. Go and see how much it will cost to change your car. Those are all the things that he's going to force you to do sooner than is necessary. You can go and see tonight the thousands of pounds that's going to cost you. I said it before, I'll say it again. He is going to put up your taxes, put up your bills, as clear as night follows day.
I'm going to just return very briefly to Claire's question. She's talking about a climate catastrophe now. What are you doing to put climate at the very centre of your policies? Very briefly.
I want to set up Great British Energy. This is a publicly owned company that will generate energy, that will have investment alongside it. It'll be owned by the taxpayer, making money for the taxpayer, and drive us to renewables so that we can have lower bills, secure energy, and the jobs of the future. I also think that we should insulate our houses because I think people are paying far too much in their bills. And that was a project that was started 10 years ago and cancelled under the Conservatives when they said cut the green crap. We've lost 10 years. I'd get on with it and get your bills down because people are fed up with energy bills that have gone through the roof.
Thank you very much indeed for that. We've got another question, a very important question from Miles from Ilford for both of you. Now, hey, Miles.
Thank you. Like many young people, I completed my final years of sixth form under COVID restrictions, started university under them, and I've had to deal with a cost of living crisis, a housing crisis, and an unstable world. What future can you offer my generation, and when will we become your priority?
Thank you very much indeed. Keir Starmer.
Well, Miles, what I think is really important is that you have the further education opportunities that you need, whether that's university or technical skills. I think either are perfectly, they're equivalent, they're really important. My dad was a toolmaker, so he went down the skills route. I was the first, as it happens in my family, to go to university. So we would ensure that those jobs are there for you, for the future, that you have the opportunity to get on. We'll build the houses so you don't have to be, 30-something, 35, 36 before you own a house under this government. But what I won't be doing is sending you on national service, some sort of teenage dad's army, which would be what the Prime Minister would say. Forget going on to university. He wants to send you off to do national service.
Thank you very much, Keir Starmer. Rishi Sunak.
You know, we have an enormous amount to be proud of as a country, but we do need to do more to make sure our young people, like you, Miles, get the opportunities that they deserve. So that's why we will introduce a modern form of national service. And I think it's going to be transformational for young people in our country, giving them the skills and opportunities they need to succeed in life, fostering a culture of service in our society, bringing it together, but also strengthening our resilience and security for the future. And I think it is going to be something that's incredibly positive. But beyond that, I want you to have financial security. So when you get that job, when you save for that house, we make it easier, which is why I want to keep cutting your taxes so you can keep more of your money, build for a deposit for that first house, and not saddle you with £2,000 of higher taxes.
Thank you very much indeed, Rishi Sunak. Keir Starmer called the national service proposals a teenage dad's army. What would you say to that, Rishi Sunak?
Yeah, I think
Tell him why you don't think it's that.
Yeah, whatever you might think of it, it is an idea that's transformational for our society.
Well, the army don't like it.
But Keir Starmer, all he can do is sneer at it. Sneer at it because you don't have any ideas for the future. You don't have anything that's bold, that's going to transform our country for the better. And in fact, everywhere I've been since I've made the announcement, I've had people talking to me about how they think it will be wonderful for their children, how they think it will change our country for the better, and it's an example of the bold action that I'm prepared to take to do things differently to deliver a more secure future. You don't have big ideas like that.
They've been in power for 14 years. And after 14 years, with a few weeks to go before the election, they come out with this desperate idea. If it's such a brilliant idea, why for 14 years has your government not lifted a finger to do it? It's a desperate attempt, now the election's being called, to get some attention to put something on the table. The other thing I would say is this. It is very important, Miles, is that the money the Prime Minister says he's going to use for this national service, he's going to take away from levelling up. Remember that promise in 2019, we're going to level up? Well, now he's going to use the money for national service, and the army say, and the military say, this isn't going to help us because we don't have the wherewithal to train people, and it'll take away from our own budget.
Rishi Sunak to respond.
It's not thought through, it's not sensible, it's desperate.
Could you respond very specifically on those points?
Actually, having spoken to lots of people from the armed forces, they're very supportive of the plan, and they think it will do brilliant for them over time to attract people into the armed forces. And actually, the money that we spend on levelling up is partly spent on spreading skills and opportunities for young people. And I think this is the best way to do it. But again, you've had 14 years with nothing to do but think about the future, but you have nothing to say about it, and all you can do is talk about the past. And it's clear, there are no big ideas here. If we want to transform our country for the better and deliver a secure future, you've got to have leaders who are prepared to do big, bold things.
Rishi,
I am.
You're not saying you're stuck in the past, Keir Starmer.
On the one hand, he says these are all the big ideas that Keir Starmer's coming up with and they'll cost a fortune. Then he says he hasn't got any big ideas. I do appreciate why he doesn't want to talk about the last 14 years. He's ashamed of the last 14 years. He's not said tonight in this debate one thing saying, this is our proud record, vote for me because we've got a great record. He can't say that. He can't say vote for Conservatives because we've got great leaders, burnt through 5 Prime Ministers. So all he can do is say, please look at the future. Please don't look at what we've done in the last 14 years. We cannot have 5 more years of this. Got to draw a line. We've got to turn a page and start
Thank you very much.
Labour.
And Miles is listening very patiently to all of this, and I want to root this in his question, whatever the to and fro on that issue may have been between the two of you. You're both homeowners. The most common living arrangement for 18 to 34-year-olds is living with their parents. Do they young need to change their expectations of home ownership now? Do we have to be realistic about this? The young people of this country deserve some honesty. Rishi Sunak.
Yeah, it is too hard to own your own home, and I want everyone to feel what I experienced when I got the keys to my first flat, because it's a very special feeling, and we need to make it easier. And that's why we've delivered 1 million homes in this Parliament, and we'll keep building homes in the right place, but not concreting over the countryside as Labour would do. But crucially, we need to make it easy for you to save for that deposit. And that's why I want your hard work to be rewarded. I don't think we should be taxing you more, because that's just going to make it even harder for you to get on the property ladder.
Thank you. Keir Starmer, on this specific point.
I think what you raise is really important, because for young people, the dream of home ownership has all but gone. The average age for owning a home now, Miles, is late 30s. That's shocking, because I know what your own roof over your head means for an individual. It meant the world to me when I was growing up. So we will build 1.5 million homes. Picking a number requires a plan. And if those homes are going to be built, we're going to have to change the planning laws to make sure we can get on with it. We're going to have to make sure our mayors and combined authorities have the powers they need to put the homes in the places. And we need to make sure the amenities are there, the schools, the health clubs, etc., to support those homes. So we've got a clear plan to deliver on the homes that will make sure, Miles, that you get that chance for the dream far earlier than you do under this failed government.
All right, thank you very much indeed. There was so much that was in the question from Miles. Thank you very much indeed for that. And we're just going to come now to a final quick-fire question. It's been a pretty serious evening in terms of what we've discussed so far. Just to both of you, apparently there is another big contest on this summer. For many, it's the biggest contest, and that is, of course, the Euros. We know you're both football fans. You are not the only leaders under pressure to win, and sometimes accused of not being exciting enough. So here, slightly with my tongue in cheek, if you'll forgive me, both of you, is a question that we've literally just had in from Gareth, who's on his way to Germany. What is the best leadership approach? Play it safe or take some risks and go for the win? What would be your leadership style? Rishi Sunak, quickly.
Well, not to give advice to Gareth Southgate, who, when I met him, we did discuss who had the worst job in Britain in terms of other people giving you their opinions. But I say you need to have a clear plan and you need to take bold action, because you don't do anything without those things.
Thank you very much, Rishi Sunak. Keir Starmer, briefly.
Game plan, good squad, and he's got both of those. I really think England are going to do really well this year. He's got a fantastic team, and I'm really...
Be radical or do you play it safe?
Sorry? You need a strategy for winning, so it depends who you're playing, what the issue is. That's what Gareth does. He's very, very good at this, and he's built a squad. And just like I've got a brilliant cabinet.
OK, thank you very much, gentlemen, for both of those answers on the footy. Thank you. And we go now to the candidates' closing statements. First of all, Keir Starmer.
Thank you. I don't offer you the gimmicks or unfunded promises that Rishi Sunak does. I don't pretend there's a magic wand that will fix everything overnight. Instead, I offer a practical, common-sense plan to change Britain. This election is about who our country works for. The simple, patriotic belief that Britain can be better and must be better. Imagine how you would feel waking up on July the 5th to 5 more years of the Conservatives. 5 more years of decline and division. The arsonists handed back the matches. Now imagine turning the page with a Labour government that rolls up its sleeves and gets on with the job, that puts the country back in your service. The choice at this election is clear. More chaos with the Conservatives or the chance to rebuild Britain with a changed Labour Party.
Thank you, Keir Starmer. Rishi Sunak.
Either Keir Starmer or I will be your Prime Minister, and a vote for anyone else makes it more likely that it will be him. Agree or disagree with me, you know what I stand for. I'll always have your back, as I did with furlough. But with Keir Starmer, apart from higher taxes, you don't know what you'd get, and neither does he. And we've heard a lot about change from him, but change to what? Keir Starmer is asking you to hand him a blank cheque when he hasn't said what he'll buy with it or how much it's going to cost you. In uncertain times, we simply cannot afford an uncertain Prime Minister. If you don't know what you're going to get with Labour, don't vote for it. On the 4th of July, choose lower immigration, lower taxes and protected pensions. Choose a secure future with the Conservatives.
Thank you very much indeed, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. Well, that's it. Quite a night. We've come to the end of our debate. You've heard from Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer head-to-head tonight. You can also hear what other parties standing in this year's general election have to offer in the ITV election interviews with Anushka Astana coming up next. The conversation will continue, not just here, on ITV, on our national and regional news. And next Thursday, guess what? We'll be back to host ITV's 7-party election debate. And then, in just over 4 weeks, you ultimately get to decide who runs the country. From all of us here in Salford, good night.
This Father's Day, give him the gift of an effortless shave. Gillette Labs, our next generation of shaving.
The most of who you are, father to son, doing what you've always done. Gillette, the best.
For the best a man can get.
When I leave my dentist, my mouth feels super clean, making me feel super confident. But the next day, it starts to fade. My dentist says it's because my manual toothbrush leaves 50% of bacterial plaque behind. So thanks to him, I discovered the Oral-B IO electric toothbrush.
Its dentist-inspired round brush head surrounds teeth, cleaning where manual toothbrushes don't reach, for 100% more plaque removal.
Now I get that dentist clean feeling every single day.
Oral-B, brush like a pro.
Is it me, or is work not working? At least, not the way it could work. Your people are buried in busy work, and you might be thinking, can AI make it all work? Can AI help your people work without all the workarounds? Feel better. Make customer service work the way customers expect. That one. Make your old tech work with your new tech. Thank you. Todd here is wondering, can AI do all of that now? No pressure. It can. On the ServiceNow platform, AI transforms your entire business. Your people work better, your customers are happier, and Todd, well, he's practically euphoric. Practically. Because when your people work better, everything works better. So, what are you waiting for? Let's get to work.
Get your cell boys here?
Yeah, he's super nice.
Now, how do you know if you know how to do whatever it is to be done by you? If there's nobody there to do it to, and what is it that has to be done is a puzzle and song. Puzzle is still as a puzzle to you. Is what is it that has to be done is a puzzle and song.
Scotland, get ready. Now is the time. The Advance Group Red Hot